Good morning, friends, on this Monday after Mother's Day. Monday in May, a beautiful Monday in May. Hi, this is Kerrie with Konversations at Kerrie's Korner. Who are we? Well, who are we? Konversations at Kerrie's Korner is just about encouraging conversation in our society. We as a society as a whole, I think not just in the United States, but worldwide, we've forgotten how to talk to each other. We really have forgotten this art of communication. We have cell phones and tablets and computers and all of these amazing pieces of technology, but we have forgotten how to communicate, how to verbally communicate with each other, face to face in a lot of situations. And I come from an era growing up in Australia for the first few years of my life, and then moving to the United States in the late 60s when I was 7, I believe. Growing up in the United States where we had to communicate with each other. We didn't have cell phones. We didn't have pagers back then. We had to communicate. When we were growing up and we went to somebody's house, we had to pick up the phone and dial the phone to let our parents know we were there. And then on our way home, it's a different world. And we have forgotten how to communicate. So this podcast is just about bringing up subjects affecting our way of life, our communities, and encouraging you to start a conversation with somebody that you may know about this particular subject. And potentially somebody that you don't agree with. Because this is the problem. We all should agree. I'm not saying we all should agree. Life would be unbelievably boring if we were all the same and we all agreed. But we have forgotten that it is okay to disagree and have conversations about our disagreements, but those conversations have turned violent in some cases and hurtful and destructive. Instead of just listening to the other party, letting them speak and listen, you could potentially learn something. Somebody could say something to you that you didn't even know, and it could trigger you to think of something differently. The greatest example I have seen of this in my life were my parents. Just unbelievable. Neither one of my parents ever met a stranger. They had this unbelievable ability to strike up a conversation with somebody they had never met, and within 5 minutes they were best friends. They may not agree, but they still had this innate ability to communicate, to listen, to empathize, to understand, and still disagree, but disagree in a way that was constructive. And they were communicating, and in some situations it really did change the thought process or the opinion or the point of view or the stance. And that's what we have forgotten how to do in our societies. Talk to each other. When's the last time, if you're a young family unit, when's the last time you actually sat down at the dinner table and had a conversation with no phones, no television, just the family unit sitting down at a dinner table and having dinner? We never went without that. That was a must. It wasn't even an option. We knew 5:30, 6 o'clock, nothing else was planned. You'd show up if you were out running around or whatever. You'd show up, you'd sit down, you'd have a conversation, and you would talk to each other about where your day was or what was happening, or was there a problem, or were we in trouble and Dad had to step in. It happened a lot, but I don't see that happening anymore. From what I can see and what I hear, my generation, well, we still do that. My husband and I still do that. We still sit down every night. We have dinner. We talk about what's going on. We may have the television on, but the volume is always down. And it's such an integral part of the family unit, and I just don't see it. I think in our society today, young families are so incredibly busy. They don't make time to sit down with each other. And that is inherently a problem. Because as their children start to go older, the kids are on the phone, they're on their iPad, they're on the television, they're on the computer, and they just don't meet as a unit to talk about what is happening. And I think it is a chemical that is eating away at the fabric of a family unit. Now, the podcast today is all about this, the communication, the lack of communication that's going on everywhere. And the communication that is going on is hateful, destructive, divisive, condescending, insulting, and misleading. And that's a real problem. And it's just not in the United States. I see it in so many other places too, as I scan through my morning ritual of reading what's going on. And, you know, it's a real problem. It is a real problem in the world today, this lack of communication. Because, you know, if you think about getting on and doing let's just say doing a video, that video could strike a chord with somebody that could have them completely and totally check out of reality, and then awful things happen. We see that happen in the United States way too often in our school system. And I think that what we're seeing, and I actually asked, my son is a probation officer and his girlfriend is a assistant district attorney. And I asked them yesterday, I said, what do you think the major problem in young kids' lives today? Now, they deal with 10-year-olds and up. Okay, so these are young children. And you know what they both said instantaneously? I mean, there wasn't even a hesitation. The cell phone, the internet, the ability for an 11-year-old within less than 2 minutes to go out on his phone, out onto the internet and find horrible things. Porn, violence, abuse of all kinds, terrible things, that are just horrible. And these are 10-year-olds. And what is also happening out of the very next thing that they said is they have no supervision. So they have this massive tool to get out and look at whatever they want, and there's no supervision. And they both instantaneously said this was the issue. Now, I can remember when my kids were growing up. My youngest child was born in 86 and then 93. My stepdaughter was born in 87. Our kids didn't get a phone, and it was a flip phone, an old-fashioned flip phone, or a BlackBerry until they were sophomores in high school. So that would have been 2003, 20 years ago. So they didn't get it until they were almost out of high school. There's a big difference between a 10-year-old and a 17 or an 18-year-old, and the ability to understand what's really bad and what your parents have expressed to you and taught you is wrong in that 7-year period of time. So they didn't get it, and we had the ability to limit everything that we didn't want them to have access to on those phones. Now, I know we have parental controls and all of that, but their phones wouldn't even do it. It was a lockdown mechanism on the phones. And we could see everything. We could see everything that went on, and we did. We interrogated them, we investigated it, we said, no, this is not appropriate. And we were involved. We were doing our job as parents to double check that our children weren't in things that they shouldn't have been doing. And that is what these two people who are on the front lines, a probation officer and an assistant district attorney, and it really made me think, wow. Phones are great. For security, they're great. Gives your kids a way to be always able to reach somebody, but they are very, very powerful, scary instruments in the hands of innocent, inexperienced children. And I think it is a major problem throughout the world. And I think as a society, we need to address it, because it's leading into, I mean, just look back over the last 10 years with the shootings in the United States. President Trump's attempted assassination. What would have been would the outcomes, or would these things have even happened without the invention of a cell phone? Look at social media. I mean, the things that pop up on my social media, I get them and I'm like, how did that show up? And I think to myself, if that's showing up in my feed, imagine what could show up in an innocent child's feed if they happen to click on just one of those, and then the algorithm picked that up, and then they would be bombarded. I also think another big problem today our young people are facing, and I think it's part that feeds into this communication problem, is parents are undermined now. When I was growing up, if I didn't do as my parents said, I had consequences. And I knew my parents were in charge. Their authority was paramount. There was no questioning it. It was what it was. And you damn well better do as you are told, or you will have significant consequences. But my parents never questioned that they would be questioned by taking care of their children or disciplining their children. Today, you have all of these people telling children that the parents are wrong. That is so destructive. Do they really know the circumstances? Do they have a camera built into this family's home to truly understand what is going on in that family? And then to say to this child, your parents are wrong? That's just unbelievably irresponsible. So we have parents today that are struggling with all of these new technologies, with all of these new things that can hurt and damage their children. And we also have a societal pressure that makes them question whether or not what they're doing to discipline their child is going to get them in trouble. How did we get there? I mean, how did we get to this position? It's a very big problem. And as a society, we've got to address the problem. I can tell you, when my grandkids come here, the grandkids that are old enough to have an electronic, a tablet, for example, for them to watch or play games on, they get it an hour. That's it. They're not allowed to have any more than an hour when they're in my house. That's what their parents that's what their parents do, but that's what I would do irregardless if that's what their parents would do, because I want to enrich them with us, with our experience, doing things with them, cooking with them, gardening with them, swimming, going for walks, and a laptop or a tablet is not replacing the relationships between the child and the grandparent. We also have a problem in that too many parents are using these technological devices as a way to babysit their children. That's not okay. Your children are your responsibility 24 hours a day, 365 days a year until they become an adult. And if you are concerned about that, maybe you should rethink your decision if you don't have children yet. Because if you have them, too bad, so sad. Your kids are here. Take care of them. It's your responsibility. They didn't ask to come here. You created them and brought them here. So it is your responsibility. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. It is not the daycare's responsibility. It's not the grandparents' responsibility or your friends. It is yours. It's a big decision. Having a child is a huge decision. Having a family is a huge decision. So think about it before you make that decision. We have got to, as a society, really address technology, access for our young children, and making sure that our young children are growing up with all of the things that we grew up with. Go outside, go play. And I know there's the outside influence and all the bad people that are in our world, but this is what our children are missing. Going outside, playing in the mud, playing, mud pies, cowboys and Indians in the backyard, going for a walk, going to the park. All of these things that shape social skills and independent thinking. An electronic device is not going to replace those things. It's going to cover them up, and it's going to lead down the road sometimes, not all the time, to where children find themselves in serious trouble. Just imagine for a second a 10-year-old violent enough to hurt a sibling or a parent at 10 years old. That's a big wake-up call to a society for 10-year-olds to be that violent. Do we have a problem? Oh, we have a very serious problem. I don't know what the solutions are. I don't know what road we need to go down to try to fix the problems. We need to support those in those fields of criminal justice and the support entities of that, mental health, social skills, all of those things, the probation department, the district attorneys, the services that are available for the children and the parents. But it all eventually starts in the home. And the responsibility rests with those in the home. Unfortunately, that's just the way it is. And I think as a society, we have to do a much better job encouraging outside activities versus technological activities. Our children are more overweight because they don't go outside. They sit in front of a TV or they sit in front of a computer or a laptop or a phone, and they're not getting the other social skills that they need. And it's surfacing. We're seeing it. So the hope is that this podcast, if you see it, start this conversation in your group. And then maybe that will spread out and we'll start to think about and address these problems. And then as a society, bring them to those that can actually make a difference, our city, state, and national officials, because it is a societal problem. In all societies, interestingly enough, the societies that don't have these tools, those that are disconnected, don't have these major problems. Tells me that that's the issue. These technological marvels are slowly but surely ticking away and eating away at the fabric of our family units. And if our family units fall apart, that then leads to our societal units, and then that leads to our national units. It's a big problem, and we need to address it. I don't know what the solutions are. Maybe this can reach somebody that can address, that's trained, that can maybe think, well, maybe we need to do this. That's how we make change, by talking about these issues rationally, calmly, without malice. So at the end of the day, we can bridge the gap, fix the divide in our country, and help the future generations. They deserve it, don't they? They deserve to have the United States of America that I had and that my children had. So it's up to us to make sure that they inherit that on all levels, financially, individually, in family units, and psychologically. I hope you'll join me in that by starting a conversation, getting back to the table, talking about these issues, and figuring out the solutions that we need so our future generations can live and have the American dream. Now, if you're not in America, I'm sure in your society there's a similar word. I don't know what that similar word would be. I'm just generally using because I'm in the United States. But this is a global issue. We globally need to address it for the welfare of the next generations to come. So that's it for me today on this Monday. I hope your Monday is a productive day. This is Kerrie from Konversations at Kerrie's Korner, where we're just trying to put some topics out there to get the conversation started, to come back to the table and make real change happen, because that's how it starts, in communicating with each other. And I want to leave you with a picture how this Konversations at Kerrie's Korner got all started. In the United States, when I was a little girl, we used to travel the country for my dad's work. And my mom would drive us, Dad would fly, and Mom would drive my brothers and I. And we would go through these beautiful, small towns, typical Americana. And inevitably, you would run into a diner, some sort of diner, whether it was an outside diner or an inside diner. And you'd walk in and they'd be these beautiful restaurants that had red or bright green interior with chrome, and even some people were on roller skates. And you'd sit down at this beautiful bar and you could have a coffee or a milkshake, a hamburger. And I can remember my parents, when Dad was with us on those rare occasions, but mainly my mom, she'd sit down at the table and strike up a conversation with somebody she'd never met in her life. And within the 45 minutes to an hour we were there, she'd come away with a new friend. And they'd have these amazing conversations. That's where we got to get. We got to get back to that ability to sit down and talk to each other about our issues calmly, frankly, without hurting each other, without violence, and listen to what the other person says. If we can do that, we can fix the problems. We just got to be willing to do it. We got to be willing to sit down at the table and talk about them, and then have that spread out into our community. That's my hope for this podcast. Maybe if you're watching this and you are struggling with a young child, think about how much time they spend on technology. You are a much better source of information than any telephone or any video game or any show on a TV, because you're the one that they look up to. Your life experience is what they need. Thanks for joining me on this Monday in May, Monday after Mother's Day. I try to do 2 podcasts a week here. If there's a subject that you struggle with or want me to talk about or would like to join me, we're going to hopefully grow here and expand where we can get people on and really talk about the issues facing our societies. That's how we make change, guys, is when we work together, when we listen to each other, we talk about it, because that's truly true change, when we can listen to each other and work together as a group for all of us, for all of our futures. Thanks for joining me. This is Kerrie. I am the owner of Konversations at Kerrie's Korner. We'll see you the next time. Have a great Monday.